This is Decimate, Darius's Q, the most lethal weapon in his arsenal when his back is against the wall, and for good reason. It's no secret to the League community that this ability absolutely saves Darius in so many ways. But how much we don't actually know about this Q is surprisingly a lot. Hey, I'm Tricycle, your workout enthusiast, your Darius connoisseur, and let's figure out all the little intricacies about this character's Q and why it's the ability you never want to miss. So, how does it work? This ability has a small windup before dealing damage, and once done, it does not that much damage. Kind of. Let me explain. Darius's Q is separated into two parts, the inner ring and the outer ring. The inner ring basically does nothing for you. It has pitiful damage, no range, and really does nothing else. If you ever see a Darius only aiming for the inner Q, he's either new to him or straight up watching paint dry while playing. I couldn't tell you. But on the other hand, the outer one is where the fun actually begins. Upon hitting your enemy with this section of the Q, your damage increases exponentially and applies a bleed onto them. More on that later though. Without even looking at the numbers, you can already feel the difference with just the sound design alone. Like what? This is the most satisfying thing in this kit, and you're not gonna convince me otherwise. Not only do you chunk them for a decent amount, you also get some healing from it. Surprisingly though, it isn't considered to be Omnivamp or Lifesteal, but it's better. Lifesteal and Omnivamp are stats that give you healing based on how much damage you deal, but Lifesteal wouldn't even work with Q because it only activates off of auto attacks. Regardless, Q already has predetermined healing numbers that are based off of two things: current missing health and the amount of targets hit. Current missing health basically just means the lower you are, the bigger the healing. It's like being at a hot dog eating competition, but we tell you every hot dog gives you $1. The further you go, the riskier it is, but the payoff is massive. But the reverse is also true. If you have 95% of your health up and you land your Q, you're going to get a band-aid for your troubles, which makes sense. But where the big numbers come from is in the second part. How many people connected with your Q? You see, the math behind it is actually very simple. For each living being that gets hit by the sweet spot, you heal an extra 17% per person. Sadly, capped at 51%, aka 3 people. Still, 51% is nothing to scoff at. Going from I'm about to eat dirt to getting your second win in a matter of seconds is the best feeling in the world. You get to turn any fight on command. No. Yeah, you really do feel homeless when you miss it. So, how do you set up in a way you'll never miss? First, what do you lose if it isn't landed? Not only do you miss out on damage and a healing pack, but you also put yourself in a vulnerable spot, which I call the Q lockout. This happens whenever you initiate Decimate. You're no longer able to cast any other abilities or auto attacks until the animation finishes. Retail Games is forcing you to put all of your attention into landing this singular ability. And honestly, fair enough. But even when your brain power is solely focused on landing the skill, you can still miss. Yeah, it's not the easiest to land, but there are ways to make these scenarios easier to hit. As I said earlier, the Q lockout prevents you from doing anything, but there are ways around it, like using the best item active for Darius, Strike Breaker. 10 out of 10 times, Darius loves to stay up close and personal as long as he can, and this item does help out a lot in this case. When activated, you throw out a circle-shaped hitbox in front of you that can hit any living being. However, once a champion is hit, they get slowed for 35% of their total movement speed for 3 seconds, whilst you're getting an extra 35% of decaying movement speed. So it's like a less cracked version of Rock Solid. My bad. Or you can use one of the other abilities before Q. Since both your W and E have some sort of CC, they'll help out a lot. With W, you can do an animation cancel by queuing midway through your W, which basically means you get a 2-for-1 special, plus an additional 90% slow. But some of you may ask, how does the animation cancel even work? Well, W has a special function where if at any point you see the animation come out, the auto attack always goes through no matter what. It's unstoppable. So even if you stun him, fear him, airborne him, it'll still persist through all of it. Pretty cool, right? Thank God it'll guarantee your Q. Man, why do people gotta have all that? Thankfully, we still have E for this exact reason. Usually, people use this to close the gap between them and their enemy. But since you're challenger and everyone else is below you, you can save it for your Decimate and just slam them. Why don't people think about this more? It's so easy. Just like you guys pressing that subscribe button. I put a lot of hours into making these videos, so you guys subscribing would not only let me know that you guys would like to see more content like this, but it would also help my boat to stay afloat. So please consider subscribing. It would help me out a lot. Okay, back to the video. So why don't you just use both? E, W, Q. Well, you'll mainly use this if you want to get your stacks as quickly as possible, but the majority of times you prefer separating them so you can stick to them as long as possible. Basically, just making the CC very, very long. But if you do it, you kind of beat the purpose of using your E to guarantee your Q. But what happens if you face someone that can actually match your fighting power? You see, Darius is already known to excel in elongated fights, but he needs time. For those who don't know, Darius has two passives, Hemorrhage and Noxian Might. Upon giving someone 5 stacks of bleed, you're granted Noxian Might, which gives you 2 things. First, it allows you to get a stupid amount of AD that no other character can get. Second, all of your attacks and abilities that are able to apply bleed now instantly gives 5 instead. So remember when I said your Q can apply bleed? Holy moly, this is the nuttiest position you could be in. Wait, what? Not only do you get everything I just mentioned, you also get your max ulti damage. Since your ulti scales off of how much bleed you have, this goes berserk once Noxian Might gets going. Unfortunately, for laning phase, it's not that simple. Top lane is the Wild West, and sometimes they don't want to do anything with you, or they can actually match you before you get to Noxian Might. So, starting the fight against those types of people, you might not want to start in close quarters combat. If only there was a way to get your passive faster during the fight. Not only does it keep you in a safe distance from their auto attack range, it also gives you a multitude of options to follow up afterwards. With the first being Stalemate. When missing your Q for poke, you're kind of forced into doing nothing. Your best ability is on cooldown and you don't want to fight without it. And most people don't have the range to gap close this distance, so it's kind of just But if your Q lands, that's where you make a choice between committing to the bit and all in, or you just take the damage and keep laning. For you to be able to take this path, you'll definitely need to know his limits. And for you to know, you kind of just have to unga bunga it until it's drilled into your head. You should definitely do that one. That's what I did for almost a decade. But most of your teammates will disagree with that one. How are you supposed to learn? You playing the spacing game with the other enemy is the biggest skill check you'll have to deal with during the laning phase. It tests both of you to see who will come up on top. And regardless of the outcome, it can tell you a lot about that player. It's such a small interaction and yet a fun little mini game that comes with so much information backed up into it. However, if all else fails, just flash it. I call that the quick time decimate. This little trick just skips every single tip I just mentioned and makes landing it 10 times easier. But it also tests the enemy's reaction time and awareness. While charging your Q, you can flash just like how you were able to use your items and actives during the animation. But compared to the others, this is the strongest option he has in his entire arsenal. And for good reason. Getting an unsurmountable amount of distance in the blink of an eye is incredible value for Darius. But you'll have to guarantee the kill in order to get value out of it. Since this spell goes on a 5-minute cooldown, you can't just throw it whenever you feel like it. If you ever get into that situation, here's what can happen. In most cases, the enemy won't expect the combo and you'll get away with it. But once you start climbing the ladder, people will notice per se, and they'll try and avoid it as best as they can. So what do you do if they know what you're gonna do? You have 3 options. First, you can simply still go for it in hopes that they'll fail to react. This one, you're leaving it all to the enemy's hands, which can be less than optimal at times. So you can go for the second one. You can just fake it. This sends a warning to the enemy and tests their reaction. If they do nothing, well, you lose nothing. However, if they're terrified out of their minds and they flash it, well, congratulations, you just won yourself the freest flash in mankind's history. And lastly, if you're already in range but your spidey senses are telling you that they're about to flash, you can just follow them. Which begs the question, how do you start predicting where they're gonna go? It's actually simpler than you think. When you charge queue, pay attention to where they're walking. Depending on where they're heading, that will indicate the direction they will be flashing towards. I can guarantee you this will work 99% of the times. I don't know why I said that. Unless you're playing against Faker, people just take the lazy way out and just flash wherever they're already going. So, better hope he's sleep deprived or something. To wrap it up, Decimate is definitely a staple in Darius' kit, ranging from dishing out incredible damage to multiple champions at a time, to straight up saving the hand of Noxus from the brink of death. But in exchange, trades all of that power for an obvious opening for others to exploit. Don't ever sleep on this ability. And with that, I'm Tricycle, your workout enthusiast, your Darius connoisseur, and I shall see you guys in the next video. Shwoop!